I'm your host, Seshasai, and I'm glad you're here. Now, in each episode, we explore the strengths behind great leadership, along with real stories and insights to help us all lead more intentionally. Today's theme, ladies and gentlemen, is on personal leadership brand and executive presence, which is central to how leaders show up and inspire others. But what do these terms really mean in today's fast evolving world of work? To help us unpack that, we are joined by two exceptional HR and L&D leaders, each bringing close to 20 years of experience and a deep passion for people and leadership development. Let me introduce you to our first guest, Mr. Nitin Bhatia. Nitin brings on board 2 decades of experience, expertise as a human resource leader with diverse work experience spanning across talent value creation, organizational strategy, and the human resource function. In his current role, Nitin leads the HR mergers and acquisition vertical for APAC region. Prior to joining Dentsu, Nitin was leading the HR function for a leading next-gen management consulting company, where he led various HR transformation initiatives. With a demonstrated proficiency in leading multicultural teams in the professional services industry, he is deeply passionate about connecting strategy, people, and process to drive organization growth. He also holds a postgraduate degree in business management from IIM Ahmedabad. When not working, one can find Nitin solving math puzzles and mind teasers. And on the personal front, Nitin loves spending time with family, reading, and improving his piano playing skills. Nitin, we are honored to have you on the show. Welcome to Strength Spotlight.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Sai. Thank you so much.
Let me introduce our second guest, Abhishek Joshi. Abhishek is the founder of Strength Masters and a Gallup certified strengths coach with a distinguished career in learning and talent management. He has played a pivotal role in driving strength based leadership development and transformation across a wide spectrum of organizations, ranging from large enterprises to fast growing startups. Abhishek, a warm welcome to Strength Spotlight.
Thank you, Sashai. Thanks a lot.
Okay, now without any further ado, let's bring in our guests now and hear what is their take and what is truly, what it truly means to lead with purpose, presence, and authenticity in today's world. Okay. Now here comes the first question, which is a common question. Abhishek and Nitin, any one of you, can take this. Okay, the question is, how do you personally define a personal leadership brand and executive presence? Are they different or deeply connected? So any one of you can take this.
So, Nitin, please.
So, thanks, Abhishek, and thanks, Sai, and the entire Strength Masters team for having me here today. I'm really excited to be sharing the stage with Abhishek and yourself. I think for me,
Pleasure
the
all
way I
ours.
define personal leadership is that it's a deep reflection of your own personal values. You know, values
Right.
that you espouse for, values that have been shaped by your personal and professional experiences. And when we play, different roles where people look up to you, whether as a leader, as a manager, or even as a parent, these are the values that you exhibit consistently. And if people are able to see these values, use these values to describe you when you're not in the room, I think then you build a personal leadership brand. And as for executive presence, I think it consists of three key traits. As per me, I think if your presence inspires people around you, that's one. If your presence give them the confidence that if I have this person with me or leading me, we'll make it happen. And lastly, if your presence helps someone to become a better version of themselves, a better thinker, a better value creator, a better communicator, a better problem solver, then I think then individual has an executive presence. And as for the second part of the question, I think personal leadership brand and executive presence are deeply connected because when you see people exhibiting those personal values every day, even in complex situations, and they are able to inspire people to create a high impact, then I think you manage to build a personal leadership brand through your executive presence. So I
Right.
think yeah, they are deeply interconnected.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nitin, for your insights. Abhishek, your take, please.
Thank you, Nitin. I think I completely agree with you, and thank you for sharing your insights. So, Sai, your question is, how do you personally define a personal leadership brand and executive presence? And you asked that, are they connected? So I'll answer the second question first. Are they connected? Yes, absolutely, they are connected. How they are connected? If you look at it, one is your essence, and the other is your expression. That's how they are connected. So in layman's
Fantastic.
terms, if you look at leadership brand is nothing but your leadership identity. In layman's terminology, if I talk about office terminology, I'll say it is what people say about you when you are not in the room. Yeah, that's your
Mhm.
leadership brand. And executive presence is the credibility, confidence, and clarity that makes people listen when you are in the room, right? They both reinforce each other. Strong presence without substance actually fades the brand, and if you have strong brand but without presence, it will not be looked properly. It will get overlooked. So that's how they complement each other. One is your essence and other is your expression. That's how I'd like to uh, answer this question. Thank you.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting, Nitin. What you just, what you said, leadership is personal leadership brand is all about it inside out. It depends on the values you carry. And the way you and Abhishek actually, connected executive presence with personal leadership brand, I see a lot of convergence there because I feel that yes, whilst when I talk about values, it automatically reflects in your gravitas because the more deeper are your values, executive presence talks about the gravitas part. Okay, and that Abhishek, that to a large extent, when you said essence and expression, it corroborates the fact that yes, is so inside whatever you are, it actually reflects, on the outside. Okay, and that's what people perceive. Fantastic. Thank you so much for those lovely insights, Abhishek and Nitin. Uh, Nitin, this question, the second question is specifically for you. Now, from an HR perspective, what qualities signal that someone has a strong executive presence beyond their title or seniority?
Interesting. That's a very interesting question, Sai. I think from an HR perspective, whenever I'm interacting with people within the organization or even outside the organization, I think the following fundamental qualities are sure signals of executive presence. One, it's discipline over brilliance. So, do you believe in investing in discipline, consistency, and rigor to build reliability with your stakeholders? Like Abhishek said,
Mhm.
is it substance over form? Second,
Correct.
confidence and composure. Do you exhibit confidence and maintain your composure even in the toughest of situations, even when things are not going the way you expected them to be? And do you exhibit confidence in your own abilities? Third, being effective communication. Are you able to articulate your vision, your ideas, your goals in a compelling manner that makes people want to be a part of it? Are you able to espouse those desires in the people? Fourth is professionalism and appearance. So, do you focus on dressing appropriately, maintaining immaculate professionalism and grooming, exhibiting good posture, maintaining eye contact when you're interacting with an individual or even with a group of stakeholders, and thereby projecting a sense of professionalism.
Right.
Fifth being emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills. As a professional, can you control your emotions and importantly sense emotions in others, thereby helping you manage your own response? And are you able to demonstrate authenticity in your interactions?
Right.
And lastly, leadership and influence. Are you able to exhibit decisiveness, take those tough calls, take those tough decisions to motivate others to achieve those shared goals? I think these are sure sort signs of executive presence when I interact with anyone. Thank you.
Fantastic, Nick. Now that's what I call a very elaborate and a vivid, description of executive presence. I mean, you've gotten so many elements together. I only thought about three things. That was the perception I was carrying. It's only the way you appear, the way you communicate, and the third one is gravitas. But then you brought in the elements of confidence, composure, resilience, empathy. Fantastic. I mean, I'm sure our audience would have a lot to actually take away with them. Thank you so much, Nitin. For those wonderful insights. Abhishek, this question is for you. Now, how can understanding and owning one's strengths contribute to building a unique leadership brand?
Thank you, Sai. Thanks a lot. So first, let me break this question down into parts. So first is how can understanding and owning one's strength, right? So let's look at first understand what are strengths. So strength is nothing but the way we feel, think, feel, and behave naturally. That's in strength science, this is what we call strength. And when we identify our strengths, like my top five strengths, your top five strengths, we start naming them. So we start understanding who we are correctly from a language point of view. That becomes very clear for us. Now, second part is owing to our strengths. Owning to our strengths. So when we start owning our strengths, it means that we start leading in a way that feels natural and not forced to us. So it differentiates us because no one else leads exactly like us. Yeah, because if you look at data, chances of two people having similar strength exactly in the same order are 1 in 33 million. So there is no one else who leads exactly like us. So our strengths are nothing but very, very, I mean, our strengths are, I should not say nothing, our strengths are very significant. They are our leadership signature. That's our strengths define our leadership signature. So when leaders operate from their strengths, they show up with a lot of consistency, energy, and authenticity. And that's how, when somebody understands strengths and owning to strengths, start owning to strength, it contributes to build a unique leadership brand because it is about you. It is like, you start constantly believe that no one else leads like you do. You may take inspiration from a lot of successful leaders. Obviously you'll learn from them, but you will know that okay, no one else leads exactly like you because you are unique. How unique? 1 in 33 million. So that's the answer to your question, Sai.
Fantastic, Abhishek. I really like the way you actually stitched the strings with, strings with executive presence. Most of my perspective, like, because what I'm also hearing from you is that a leadership brand, especially personal leadership brand, cannot be replicated.
Yes.
Just because each person comes with his or her own unique set of talents and skills, and that naturally gives you. In fact, I like the definition of strengths. What you said, the person, the way we naturally think, feel, and behave. And when it comes to the thinking, feeling, and behave, but obviously, your leadership style, the way you talk, the way you behave, the way you exhibit your behaviors, obviously is going to differ from person to person. Fantastic. So,
Right.
so that's where we are adding personal, before the leadership brand. It's not leadership brand, but it's personal leadership brand. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Abhishek, for those wonderful insights. Okay, now moving on to the next part of the conversation. This question is again both Nitin, to you as well, Abhishek. I mean, any one of you can pick this. What are some common blind spots professionals have when trying to develop the executive presence?
So I've just spoke.
Some
I'd like
common
to
blind
invite
spots.
Nitin.
Yeah.
So Abhishek, you want to take
No,
it
Nitin, I
first?
think I'd like to invite you. I just spoke.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, thank you. I think when we talk about blind spots, there's one key blind spot that I've noticed quite commonly, and which is charisma over impact. When people focus more on charisma over the impact that they are creating, they forget that what really matters is, are you really able to create an on the ground impact for your stakeholders?
Yeah.
And stakeholders being your employees, your colleagues, your partners, your friends, your family. Are you really able to create an on the ground impact? And
Yeah.
and in accounting, we have a doctrine called the substance over form, which
Yeah.
basically means
Yeah.
prioritizing what the transaction means in the economic sense rather than its formal appearance. And
Right.
Abhishek spoke
Formal
about this
appearance.
earlier. I've seen professionals making the error of focusing more on form rather than substance while trying to build their executive presence. And I would say professionals, when attempting to develop executive presence, should focus more on substance rather than form.
Right.
And how does one develop
Mm.
substance? I think the first and the foremost important thing is by developing self awareness and understanding one's strengths and weaknesses. And so that they're able to leverage their strengths better in their journey of developing their executive presence. So that's, I think, one key blind spot that I have observed. Thank you.
Lovely, Nitin. I guess you have broken the myth that flamboyance or charisma is often mistaken for as if
Mhm.
yeah, somebody who's charismatic, he has a great executive presence. Okay, so I think that that's a wonderful. So in the form of an equation, because you and me are really fond of mathematics, so flamboyance doesn't necessarily be equal to impact. Okay, so does this? So here the conclusion is like once we are as a leader, once we are aware of that, what impact do we expect? I mean, do we desire for? What is the desired impact? And then perhaps we can, reverse engineer that, okay, these are some of the steps. And then you start working on your values. And like, Abhishek said, and you also corroborated that, yes, your value systems, your ethics, your belief systems. So the way you feel inside, it automatically comes out. Great, good. I think, I'm really loving this conversation, Abhishek and Nitin. Thank you so much once again. Okay, now, Abhishek, this question is to you. How can someone identify the core strengths that should anchor the leadership brand? So is there a methodology with which a person can identify, leader can identify the core strengths?
Uh, yes, I think there is a methodology and there is a method in madness, as we say. So our strengths tell us what we are, who we are. And when we look at what we are really good at, what not just good, what you are at your best, when you are at your best, you are very energized, you are very productive at that point of a time, and you think of making an impact. So using a tool like Clifton Strength Assessment, understanding strength-based leadership in detail, you can understand how your core strengths work for you. How do they work for you when you are trying to build an authentic self? And like I said, many times what happens when we think of executive presence, we always think of external elements. We ignore internal elements. So executive presence is more about, like Nitin also said, it is about uh, creating the impact. But what happens? People focus a lot on appearance and underestimate the substance. So your strengths tells you a lot of things about substance. So when I talk to people in layman's term about executive presence, if I just instantly ask somebody that what comes to your mind when you think of executive presence, they'll talk about posture, voice. It is not like that. They are important, but they have very limited weightage. What is really important is clarity, conviction, connection with self. And it all starts when you start understanding how you feel, naturally think, feel, and behave. And in terms of crisis, when you are under pressure, even if you are trying to portray something, your real self will emerge. So it is better that you understand your
Hmm.
real self and then start driving things around you, then start building your executive presence, working on it, and refining, polishing it constantly, rather than just focusing on external elements like how do you dress up, how do you talk, how do you look. These are all secondary. So when someone identifies the core strengths, it creates a very strong anchor, and it gives you very strong. So it gives you kind of gives you in Google Map your destination, and you also get to know your location. So you just have to press the start button, you travel from your location to the destination very, very smoothly, especially in the context of executive presence side.
Lovely. So which means that, Abhishek, it's like, it's all about self-awareness, because you've been emphasizing on the strengths part. So that means,
Yeah.
yes, the more you're aware of yourself, okay, the more uh, you'll actually come to know about your destination, because I really like the analogy of the GPS part into that you brought up. So it's more
Mhm.
about the destination, because everything, you just have to push, press the push button, and then you are on your, like, it's like you're in auto mode. Fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic, Abhishek. Thank you so much for those, for that lovely analogy. Okay, now the next question, moving on to the next question. Nitin, this is for you. Can you share an example where someone's leadership brand evolved significantly, and what drove that shift?
Interesting. When I look back at the various junctures in my journey, there are a couple of instances that come to my mind, but there's one incident that I remember very clearly that gave me an insight into developing a leadership brand. In one of my previous roles, I was leading a very complicated employee separation issue and case, and the then HR head and myself, we were discussing the complications with the then CEO. And it was a difficult situation involving a very senior leader who was leading a business across geographies, and the situation involved some serious financial, legal, HR, compliance considerations, that too in a new geography where we were not based out of. And after we finished explaining all of these implications to the CEO, he just paused for a minute and asked us just one question. And he said, keeping all considerations aside, tell me what's the right thing to do. And that one question and that one moment in itself was a master class in how to evolve one's leadership brand in the eyes of stakeholders. And what drove that shift for me personally is that I saw a side of a leader of which I was not aware of before. I mean, while I admired the CEO, I was in for his business acumen and I was in awe of him. But that day, I got to see his people empathy and his integrity, and learn how to do the right thing, even when you're in the midst of all the chaos and midst of all the noise. So I think that one incident really, when I look back, I'm able to recall how the personal leadership brand kind of evolved in that one discussion. So
Right.
that incident comes to mind. Sai. Thank you.
Interesting. Interesting.
Oh, that's a fantastic example. I mean, what is that? What is it that one right thing we can do? Because in such situations, we all must have come across so many such exit interviews. But at that level, and knowing the fact that yes, the gentleman, in consideration, is a very very senior person, handles some great assignments, span of control, and everything. Everything was such it's a very critical position as well. So at that point in time, without panicking or rather taking some drastic step or step which may have been inappropriate at that point in time, but rather than going on those lines, but thinking in the direction that okay, what is the one right thing we can do so that this situation gets solved. Okay, perfect. I guess Nitin, that's a very very it's a practical example that you gave to share from your experience. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So far, it's like I'm really thoroughly enjoying this, and I think we still have time for about we can pick up more questions. Okay, Abhishek, now this question is for you. In your
Right.
experience, how does authenticity play into building executive presence, and how do strengths help leaders stay authentic?
Thanks, Sai. It's a very simple answer to this question. So what happens, Sai, when you lead with your natural talent, when you are yourself, you're authentic, people can feel it's real. And even when you don't do this, people can actually also understand it's not real, And that resonance is extremely, extremely powerful. So what happens, when we start leading authentically, and when we say authentically, understanding ourselves from the point of your strengths and understanding that okay, this is how I do things in my I'll not say my way, that this is how I can do things naturally, right? Without, so let's say if someone realizes that I can be very happy in having very clear conversation with people, I don't have to, and it suits me, I don't have to be diplomatic always, right? It's very very basic fundamental things. So what happens when you lead authentically, it creates trust, and trust is the core of presence. So what is the reason of, so why people have started looking at individuals as brand? What does an authentic brand does to a consumer? Creates trust. So let's say if I am
Trust.
trying to talk about individual executive presence and personal brand, the aim is that how can I be more authentic so that I create trust. So strengths ground leaders in who they are, not who they think they need to be. So it's very very simple. So when they lead with their natural strengths, people can feel it, and that resonance is pretty much required. I mean, it creates a lot of impact sign. So that's the answer to your question.
Fantastic. So
Yeah.
my takeaway, Abhishek, from this is like I've come across many leaders who actually strive very hard to build that executive presence. Now, sometimes it triggers my thought process that is executive presence something which can be acquired, or we can really, I mean, is this a skill which needs to be acquired, or it's something which automatically comes from inside, and you don't even realize that yes, you've been able to build a very strong executive presence. Now, when you said that yes, if a leader plays up on his strengths, an executive, an aura automatically gets created around him or her. Okay, and
Right.
that's exactly what you call. And I really like the way that you actually connected authenticity with trust. And this reminds me, there are so many influencers on social media. I'm sure, yes, I mean, with the number of followers, they're able to create a bit of authenticity, in terms of that, yes,
Yeah.
people are able to relate with them by virtue
Yeah.
of storytelling. And this in turn creates a strong credibility, which in turn equates to trust. And eventually, yes, I mean, they have a very strong personal brand and is present. Thank you so much. I guess, I mean, Abhishek and Nitin, both of you all are giving some, valuable insights. It's like an enlightenment, very enlightening session today. So far, so good. Great. Now, moving on to the next question, Nitin, this is for you. In the age of, and this is, I mean, this is this is my favorite question. I mean, in the age of, and I'm sure this question, a lot of audience will also will actually find it very, very relevant. In the age of remote and hybrid work, how can professionals still show up and demonstrate executive presence virtually?
Very interesting. And I think especially the very, very relevant question, Sai, because in today's world, post the pandemic world, we've
Yeah,
seen that, a lot of interactions in the business world are virtual rather than in person. So, and
right.
with the amount of, fresh talent that is entering the workforce every day, I think they need to be aware about how to build that authenticity and how to still show up and demonstrate executive presence in a virtual environment. And I think there are five key things professionals can do to show executive presence virtually. I think the first and the foremost is respect for the other person's time. I think
Yeah.
from a professional's point of view, just because we work hybrid doesn't mean that we don't show up on time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In case there are any last minute schedule changes, delays, the the first and foremost thing that we need to do as professionals is to inform the other person or the attendees as soon as you become aware of the anticipated delay and even the reason for the same thing. Okay, you know what,
yeah,
this happened and I'm going to be running late for 10 minutes. That shows that you respect the other person's time as a professional.
Right.
And from the perspective of a leader, and being hybrid doesn't just mean that you expect availability of your team members 24 by 7 just because a lot of organizations and teams today work in a hybrid manner. So
Right.
yeah,
respecting the boundaries of your colleagues and team members is very, very important in a hybrid setup. So
right.
that's one, respect for one a person's time. Secondly, I think emphasizing communication and transparency. That is very important. I remember during the COVID-19 pandemic, the organizations that were able to manage the crisis very, very well were the ones whose leader or CEO was actively communicating to the employees directly
Right.
about what
Yeah,
measures were being taken on the ground, how are we communicating to the clients, what is the financial situation of the organization, how to adjust to the new ways of working. Those key messages were coming from the leader directly, transparently. And all that communication and transparency helped build trust. Like Abhishek said, authenticity builds trust. And it helps build trust with the employees and made them feel that the companies had their back. And these are the
oh yeah,
organizations who were able to navigate the crisis successfully because
Right.
leaders were over communicating with transparency and they were showing up with authenticity even virtually. So
Right.
that's, I think, the second point, emphasizing communication and transparency. The third point is that you replace your transactional interactions with deeper connections. Make
Mm.
your members or audience experience a feeling of being seen, being heard, being
Right.
acknowledged, even in a virtual environment.
Yeah.
Just because we're not meeting in person doesn't mean that we cannot make them feel that way. So that
yeah,
there's
Yes.
a feeling
Yes.
of connection and trust. And one-on-one conversations are a great way of enabling that open dialogue, creating a level of intimacy that will help the leaders also go beyond just transactional work conversation. Just to give you an example,
transactional.
even in team meetings in our setup, we have a catch up every Friday where the title is Better Together, and they are structured in such a manner that every Friday we catch up for an hour. We have a fun quiz contest which is hosted by one of the team members, and the time is set aside just for banter, to ensure that we connect on a personal level. So that space is created where authentic conversations and connections are built. The fourth one being striking a balance between review meetings and working discussions. So, when as a professionals, we do a lot of meetings with our team day in and day out. Before scheduling, having those meetings, you need to ask yourself, is it just a review meeting where we're just going to take a status check, do a check-in, or is it like a working discussion? And using your team's time and bandwidth, appropriately, balancing it, whether it's for a check-in or a detailed hand-on working session. An appropriate balance will help the team to respect your time and will also help you to leverage your team's bandwidth better. So striking that balance between both
Right.
types of meetings. And one last thing, I think humanizing the camera, virtual setup. You need to make the same connection while you're speaking into the computer, which is an inanimate object, like we're doing right now,
Yeah.
as you would do when you're talking to someone in front of you. It's natural to lose connection
Absolutely.
this way, but the problem is, towards that we could do three things. Locate the eye of the camera, speak directly to the eye of the camera, especially when you're using
Mm.
multiple screens. Imagine that you're speaking to someone and try to keep the camera at your eye level.
Right.
Because when you do that, you're humanizing the camera and you're talking directly to the person, even when you are virtually. That helps you show up and build executive presence, even in a virtual environment. Thank you.
Very nice. Very.
Very, very valid and pertinent points. All the five: respect, proactive communication, and moving from transactional discussions to more transformational. And I mean, I particularly, like the fourth and the fifth one, especially the fifth one, humanizing the camera, which I completely, I feel myself so miserable actually, in front of the camera. That's one. And second is the fourth one, Nitin, which is a very, very, I think that's a clear message which should go out to all the leaders like us, that there should not be any, there should be a clear demarcation between what's a review meeting and what's a working discussion.
Yes.
I think
Yes. Absolutely.
I think that, and it should be both ways. Not just a leader has to communicate, but also it's a two-way. It's a two-way affair. Respecting each other's boundaries and time, especially in a virtual, wherein frustration can seep in, within seconds. What's happening, and I have absolutely no clue, and nobody's there to hear me. So I guess this is a very, very, very pertinent point, that yes, if you are able to demarcate, discern between what's a review meeting and what's a working discussion, I think we are quite well sorted. And those 7 to 8 or 9 hours of working virtually can be, can turn out to be very, very productive. Thank you so much, Nitin, for those lovely insights. Okay, moving on. This again, it's a common question. Abhishek and Nitin, any one of you can take it. How important is feedback in shaping one's personal leadership brand, and what's the best way to seek it?
Abhishek, you want to go
Sure.
take
Sure.
that
Sure.
thing first?
So, simple sign, feedback is the mirror. It's absolutely crucial. It makes the invisible visible, and it's the best way to seek feedback is ask ask questions, ask curious questions, do self reflection. Maybe ask one question, that one word. What's that one word that describe me as a leader? Uh, where do I see my biggest impact? What is one thing that I could be better at? Very, very simple questions. So these are simple questions that you can ask, and use them as raw material that will shape one's personal leadership brand.
Hmm,
That's the answer to your question, Sai.
fantastic. Nitin, what's your take?
I think, when I was listening to this question, I was reminded of a very interesting conversation that I had with my then HR head, and during a performance review discussion, especially with him, and while we were discussing my performance, and I was getting feedback and trying to absorb it, trying to make sense of it. He said one line which is stuck with me even today. And he said, there is something which nature does, and there is something which nurture does.
Yeah.
And at first I didn't understand. And then he went on to explain. He said, while we all have our innate abilities, innate strengths that mold us, it is the nurturing, the feedback that helps us to leverage those abilities, leverage those strengths, and shape our personal leadership brand. That was like a light bulb moment for me, because that's when I realized how important taking that feedback is. And I think feedback is very, very crucial for developing a personal leadership brand, because A, it enhances our self awareness, B, it provides valuable insights into strength and our areas of growth. It demonstrates that we have a growth mindset. We want to become better. And D, it helps me to refine my own leadership style, and it ensures that that style aligns with my desired brand image. So my, like Abhishek mentioned, the passion and the aspiration, they kind of align with each other. So, so I would say yes. That one incident reminded me of a feedback, how important feedback is.
Yeah,
Lovely,
absolutely.
lovely. I mean,
So,
some very interesting points are coming up. Abhishek, you said mirror. I mean, that reminded me of a concept in physics which is known as lateral inversion. You stand for the mirror, and
Mm.
then mirror it. It actually it reflects your personality. I mean, you can see yourself through. So that's a great analogy that you give. And of course, Nitin, your that one line. I think I'm going to use it. Please, you need to give me permission to use that. Nature versus
absolutely.
nurture. I mean, that's a great way of explain the concept of feedback. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I mean, this really, this conversation is really getting interesting with every question that's being asked. Okay, great. Abhishek, moving on, this question is to you. It's coming to you. How can leaders use their strengths to enhance their ability to influence others without coming across as self-promotional?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Sang. It's a very interesting question that you have asked. So, if you look at, and you use the term called self-promotional. If you look at LinkedIn, we are doing this LinkedIn live. So, if you look at, a lot of people find self-promotional promotion as a way to create influence. And if you look, I mean, I also wrote a post a few days ago that when I read a lot of leaders post, I count, how many times they have used I. And it tells me how they have conversation within their team. So there was a time, a friend of mine leading a very good growth stage organization. That person used I 16 times in his LinkedIn post, and I called him. I said, this tells me about how do you interact about your team. He replied that I wanted to create an influence. I said, that's not influence, that's called self promotion. So therefore, there is a difference between creating influence. So influence is about, when you look at from a leadership point of view, influence is about how do you serve people. How do you, so as a leader, when you are working with people, you have
Mm,
stakeholders, you have team members, how are you serving them? What are you doing with them? So when
mm,
you focus on authenticity, basis your strength, you focus on
mm,
creating value. So for example, just to give you a very clear perspective, so let's say if I, after discovering my strengths, I realize that I am a leader who is a very execution oriented leader. So I will also be
mm,
able to help my team using execution as a key methodology. So I'll not be trying to do something else without trying to be self-promotional. I'll create, uh, I'll create, I'll serve people by adding value and helping them streamline that. At the same time, let's say if I realize that I am a leader who has, my strengths domain is strategic thinking, I know that I can influence people, I can serve people, I can add value by sharing a lot of strategic insights, right? So let's say on the other side, let's say if I realize that I, as a leader, my core domain is relationship building. So as a leader, then I know that I can build deep relationship and influence people. So when you are focused on helping others succeed, influence becomes a byproduct of your authenticity, and you don't have to perform to
mm.
create influence. It comes very, very naturally. that's
Very
uh, that's how I
naturally.
look at it, Sai. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely, Abhishek. I think yes. I mean, as long as you're authentic, you're playing up to your strengths. You really don't have to strive hard to create that executive presence or your personal leadership brand. it will be visible, without even we knowing that yes, I mean, this is how we have been, you know, people are actually perceiving us, and this is how we are actually projecting ourselves in a very authentic way, not really in an not trying to camouflage or masquerade or trying something which comes across as a fake thing. So I guess
Yeah.
I guess fantastic. I think, Abhishek, that's a very valuable insight on this. Okay, now Abhishek. Okay, now this Nitin. The next question goes to you. How do you coach or mentor future leaders in your organization to consciously craft and evolve their leadership brand?
So again, a very, very relevant question. And, Sai at Densu, we believe that everyone can lead. And we have an internal model called Leadership at Densu model, which is rooted in our 8 ways. And it outlines the behavior that will bring these to life. And our entire Densu learning network, the Densu University team is incorporating this model into training and development opportunities, which help all Denso employees to kind of develop their own leadership brand, set the direction, grow the talent, activate radical collaboration, delight our clients, and even inspire others. So it helps the entire leadership at Denso series. Helps learners to identify where they are in their leadership journey, and it equips them with knowledge to bring the teams across Denso, to bring that knowledge to teams across Denso. So that's one, the leadership at Denso series. And for example, we also run a Me to Be program, which is a leadership development offering, which is built to support and develop, especially the first time managers, as they transition from an independent role, which is
Right.
me, to a people manager and a people leader role, which is we. So going from me to we, that's another program that we use.
Hmm.
And we also offer another program that we use is a fundamentals of leadership program, which is a leadership development program for all people leaders in the organization, which helps people leaders to enhance their critical skills necessary through high touch, high engagement approach, and through peer to peer learning and networking. So these are some of the programs that our Densu talent and learning team uses to develop, help employees develop their personal leadership brand. Thank you.
Very nice.
Fantastic. I mean, it's so good to know. It's so encouraging that yes, there are, as an organization, you've undertaken so many initiatives just to make sure that yes, the leaders are developed at every level, not just they're not restricted to a particular level, and this to a large extent it also not just helps in creating a personal leadership brand, but also it would be it could play a very pivotal role into succession planning as well, because then you're trying to create those leaders right in the you're catching them young and then watching them grow plan and simultaneously. I really like the word when you use radical collaboration. Okay, radical collaborative environment. That's really something which actually caught my attention and intrigued me. Okay, now Abhishek and Nitin, we just have enough time to pick one last question which will be common. Okay, I think we are bang on time. And that okay, the question is, if someone feels they lack executive presence, okay, what are two three small but powerful steps they can take immediately to begin developing it? I think our audience would be very quite. They would be keen to know your perspectives perspective on this.
Abhishek, you want to?
Sure. Thanks, Nitin. So first is I get feedback. That's a raw material,
Hmm.
get feedback. That's the first thing that someone can do. Second is learn about your
Okay.
strengths and learn to use strengths daily. Operating from strengths will boost confidence, and your presence follows confidence. That's how it works. Third is do reflection on a daily basis. Ask simple questions like, what did I do well? What could I improve? Because ultimately, your awareness will lead to growth. These are simple things that people can do.
Nitin, quick your quick thoughts on this.
Yeah, no, I think Abhishek has summed it up very nicely, and I think just to add to what he said, cultivating confidence. I think that's very important, because the entire aspect of personal leadership brand and executive presence is built on self assurance and a belief in your own abilities. Honing your communication skills. That's the second one, and third, and everything that's the most important, is being consistent and reliable. Build trust by demonstrating reliability and commitment to your work. And lastly, I think just to sum it up, personal branding is the art of becoming knowable, likable, and trustable. These are, I think, the three things that one can do to build one own personal leadership brand.
Great, great. So thank you, Abhishek, and Nitin. A big thank you to our wonderful guests, ladies and gentlemen, for sharing such powerful insights and experiences with us today. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in and being part of this conversation on Leadership Brand and Presents. Until next time, keep leading with strength and purpose. This is Strength Spotlight signing off. Thank you so much once again.